tie-dyes on here.
Yo,
Yo, what's up, bro?
what's up, man?
And chilling, man, chilling, man. Yo, just make yourself comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Hella comfortable, bro. It's
Yeah,
hot as hell.
it's too hot right now, man. Too hot for real. I'm trying to get to the beach as soon as possible.
Right.
Yeah, man. So how you doing, man? How's the quarantine life treating you right now?
It's good, man. It's getting hotter. Just watched a crazy video about like conspiracies and stuff about it.
Oh, of the virus and stuff.
Yeah, man. You don't know what to believe no more, bro.
Well, you leave people alone too long, man. People gonna start coming up with some theories.
Right. I feel that.
So what were they saying?
Just a lot of like it's like a government thing and
Mm,
there's like a lot of stuff that they're not telling us. You know what I mean? Just like those type of things. A little bit more detailed. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's
People gonna go deep on that, bro, because it's affecting a lot of people, you know. So it's and it's a worldwide thing, and
yeah,
there's too many factors that come into play, man. Whether it's this virus comes out of China just when we're starting like a trade war and all that sort of stuff.
right.
So yeah, it
Yeah,
goes deep, man. It goes deep. We could spend 3 hours just talking about that,
right.
man. But
Exactly.
yeah, bro. So for the people that don't know you, uh, yeah, tell us a little bit. Give us an intro, man.
Yeah, my name is Sherwin Salonga, aka Baby Todd Eyes, aka Beast. Primarily a crump dancer, but I'm starting to dive into other styles and stuff. Yeah, college graduate. Um, um, yeah, been traveling, doing stuff with dance, and just trying to expand whatever I can do in the dance community.
Yeah,
That's
man. That's big. So just real quick, you're coming out of Torrance, right?
yep, from Carson.
Yeah, Carson. Yeah, South Bay. So, um, yeah, explain a little bit behind your name. Like you got Baby Tight Eyes, aka Beast.
Yeah.
What is Well, I mean, we kind of can defer what the baby tight eyes means. People might not understand for people just watching the interview. What do FAMs mean in Krump?
Mm. Yeah. So FAMS and Krump is basically short for family. So when it first started, like a lot of the founders and the innovators in Krump came from like broken homes, and same with me. So families in Crump was like an alternative gang, or like, like if you had a broken home, you would want to fix that within the streets or within your peers. So, at the time it was either gang banging or like some type of club or sports, but some people weren't meant to be sports players, or maybe even other styles of dance. So that's when Crump really took that influence and made it a Crump family. So you have a teacher, which is like Todd Eyes. He's my teacher. And then you have like ranking systems. So you have like junior Todd Eyes, twin Todd Eyes. Now it's getting creative because there's too many Crumpers. And
Yeah,
so you got to get creative with like what your name before like Todd Eyes is. So yeah, mine's is Baby Todd Eyes. And then I have a teacher name, which is Beast. And then I have my own like little family going on over there, and then they have their own. So yeah, that's what family is in Crump. Is like primarily we replace, yeah, the need of like a family that we didn't have growing up. And then
yeah, that's crazy, man. Because like for me, it's like I come from a broken family too, but it's the last thing I wanted to do was create another one.
right.
Yeah, I was like, yo, I know how this goes, man. I ain't trying to go down that road again.
Right. I mean, that's something I'm learning just like now, like growing up, like really looking back, I'm like, yo, like we were kids raising kids, you know what I mean? And there were times, there were like highs of highs and then lows of lows, you know? So there were some mistakes that I did, or like even my peers did, who were my teachers, and they didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know what I was doing. So, yeah, man, looking back at it, I was like, dang, like it just shows how big of a family, like, or how big your primarily like family has a role in your life. You know, nothing can really replace that, I believe.
Yeah, no matter how dysfunctional each person could be, there's still so much learning that happens within a group of people,
Mm,
whether it's through people's faults or through people's because even I come from a broken family, but that definitely carves out a lot of how you process the world, you know.
right, right.
Especially if you go through a lot of struggle with your family, like you know that's a real thing that happens with other people as well. So you're gonna
Yeah.
have to confront it one way or another, probably, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, what I'm learning right now, because I read this book, 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. And one
Mhm.
of the things he said in the book was like to deal with corruption, but not being corrupt. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, man. I mean, there's just like, it's either one or the other. So if you're dealing with like a broken home or broken family, you could either be like that or not like be corrupt. But it takes a lot, man. And I think that's when the real growing up happens. Like when you get into your adult age and you start to act like off of impulse or off of like, you know what I mean, like off of like instinct, but it's not really instinct. It's like you're programmed because you know like you're how you were raised and the different traumas that you went through, and you believe like this is the only way I can react to situations. But that's why I feel like that's like a lifetime's worth of undigging, man.
Yeah. So, like, if you had to look back when you were starting Crump and you were kind of like adopted into a family,
Mm.
was the Eyes family the first family that you came into?
No. So my very, very first family, it was only like 3 months. It's called the recognized family because my friend, we were in Spanish class together, and it was like Halloween, and the teacher was like, "Hey, like, does anyone want to show off their talents?" And then this guy, they knew he Krump, but they were calling it Buck, so they're like, "Get Buck," and I was like, "Buck." So he got off, and I was like, "Yo, that looks like Krump," because I only seen Rise, so they don't talk about like Buck and Rise yet. And they're like, "Oh, it's like the same thing, come through." So yeah, I went to his family, and then I left that family, the recognized family, into the Beast family. So I'm not the original Beast in Crump. There was a Beast before me, and then I was Little Beast. So
Uh,
yeah, and this was like when I was maybe like 14. So I was Little Beast, and then there was a guy, Gabe. He was Kid Beast at the time, and then he went to Junior Beast, and we were like, it was like us three, kind of running things and stuff. And then when Beast stopped dancing, and I needed like a teacher name, I was like, "Yo, can I have Beast? Because you're not
yeah.
dancing anymore."
Yeah, that's tight. So that's crazy. I didn't know that there was Beast before you.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like something that you came up with later on down the road.
No,
Um,
no.
so what dictates when somebody can like start a fam or start teaching? Is there some sort of like community that regulates that?
Before and even like now, it's a big topic, you know, because especially teaching nowadays has to deal with business. So before, like teaching was just like you just wanted to teach your friends, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
my first students, in a sense, weren't like from studios. They were my legit friends. Like he's my roommate down there, Mike, and like we started like he started the next day as me, and it was just because like he was my best friend, and then he saw me dancing at lunch, and then some other homies saw me. So that's how teaching was, and I still believe that's how teaching should be. But then now that the topic of like you can get paid through going to studios, going to schools, traveling, you know, so that's where like this qualification like topic needs to come to play. But like, you know, I in a sense, like if I was coming into Crump now and I wanted to teach my friend like like the next day, and I'm just a day one dancer, like, you know, it's like a different time, you know what I mean? So I feel
Mm,
like we need to find that balance of like, yeah, I think you could still spread Krump, but when it's in the business aspect, I think that's when the qualifications need to be in play. But you can always share your experience, you can always share your theories and your knowledge. I think that should be for free and for your community. But if you're starting to try to do it like as a business or something, for sure there needs to be a balance because yeah, if I started Krump like today and I took, even if I take all of like Todd Eyes' classes online and take his like workshops or whatever, because you take a lot of workshops still doesn't qualify you, in my opinion. Like you need to be tested by it, you need to be like tested by the culture, like you need to be in the
mhm.
culture, you need to be like kind of solidified as, and that's where little homies like kind of play a test to your teaching, so when you have dope little homies it kind of shows your teaching ability, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the problem comes into play a lot of times, like in multiple styles, when someone becomes like famous, right, and marketable, and
Mm,
then it comes before they're kind of really adopted into the culture, like they're not really a part of it, but they got a lot of fame or something,
yeah, yeah.
and so they start getting offered jobs. So it's kind of like, are they responsible for turning down those jobs, or?
Mm. I think they need to be smart because let's say, okay, they're getting booked to perform, and if performing was their thing that like got them in a sense famous, then maybe it's okay. But if someone's saying like, I want you to perform and teach and judge, I would say no. So let's say
Mm,
even if I'm like practicing popping now and like I get good or whatever because like I'm a good battler and I can like put that into popping or whatever, put my mindset, my creativity, but if it comes to teaching, I would like deny it, I would deny it. I can confidently say like, give me a year and I'll
yeah.
whoop some ass. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll whoop some ass in popping. But if it's teaching wise, I think no, because there's a lot of stuff I would love to experience. There's a lot of stuff that, like teaching is totally different from battling and stuff. So um I would be careful. Yeah, I would be very careful because yeah, man. It's again, it's such a touchy topic, but we have to keep the integrity, So I think the safest way is, why are they booking you in the first place? And is it, if it's because you're viral and that's what gives, the performance or whatever, like money and like business or whatever, I think you should still like take it, but be cautious if they say, "Oh, I want you to teach to like Krump," or "I want you to teach other styles." I think it'll be kind of weird, like to see that, and I wouldn't feel
Yeah.
comfortable either.
Yeah, it happens. It happens a lot, man. It's like, yeah, whose responsibility is it, right? Because
Yeah,
you have like three people that are kind of in that play. So you have the culture, and you have the people that like we would deem that are like like a valid source of passing down the culture. Then
right.
you have the person that's like famous, but maybe not a part of the culture, but maybe they have a little bit of skill, but they're marketable. But
Mm.
then you also have the people with the money that's choosing where to put it, like the organizers.
Mm.
So, like, is it the organizer's responsibility for choosing the right person, or is it, the culture supposed to regulate who, do they go out and check these people that are getting the job, or they check the organizers?
Yeah. Yeah, I
There's,
think I think it's everyone's responsibility. If you're an organizer for a dance event, like even if you're not a dancer but you're like a business person, I would hire or have a partner that's a dancer. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these like big dance events maybe are ran or partnered with people that aren't even like in a culture, So I
mm,
think that's their responsibility. The responsibility too for like the culture or like the OGs or like heavy hitters, teachers or whatever, is to help cultivate like people that's yeah, that's interested. So I mean, like, an example like with you, like you're getting into Krump and I'm like really watching your progress and stuff, and I'm taking responsibility to be like, all right, like you're interested, so let me make sure like you're in the right path. And you can always, we've been talking about it.
yeah, yeah.
Training, so that's their responsibility too, like because if you don't take action, like the world is gonna keep moving on, you know. And especially like I know it's tempting when people like not even like me, like people older than me that like, all right, the work needs to stop because people needs to like just come to us if they want to teach, if they want to do this. But we still have to reach out to the community, you know, and still keep a watchful eye, like who's interested, who's getting like a bit famous, or who's like, you know, getting clout and all that. And then it's also the dancer's responsibility too. Like they need to be honest with themselves, like, hey, I don't know enough to teach. Because one thing about me is I don't only teach techniques, because you can say like, oh, Tadai taught me this jab, you know. But then how I'm teaching now, and this is why I'm trying to bring up the level of teaching is, okay, like I'm gonna teach you guys get off with the technique, but then like my experience with this. So I would bring up like my experience from like, all right, in certain battles when I had to battle proof, like my first round, I wanted to do straight get off, like no tricks, no whatever, just straight like get off freestyle and all that. So I could like teach from experience too. And I think that can like filter out, you know what I mean? Like for people that just takes a bunch of workshops and whatever, and you know, if they're lucky and or not lucky, if they're just like, you know, worked hard and a good dancer and take up another style. But yeah, they just need to experience, they need experience with the skill too. So
Yeah, it brings up like a bigger question for me too, and it's something I've talked about with a couple other guests, like the idea of being a guest in a culture. You know, when does somebody like basically earn their stripes per se? You
mm-hmm.
know, because for example, like popping comes from like an African American background, Latino background, you know, Chicano background, like this. Now, I'm predominantly white, right? I got a little Mexican in me, so they say that's why I can dance, but I swear it's not. but but they say you know, like just my appearance, right? And will I forever be a guest in a culture where the origins were not of my ethnicity or heritage? You know, I started dancing when I was 20 years old, so like when do I not become a guest? Because now I'm 31,
Mm.
so it's kind of like this culture is basically over a third of my life.
Right.
So, and it's something that since I started, I was devoted to it, and also learning the history and all that. And it's not like you know, you meet people that have been dancing 15, 20 years, but they didn't really get in there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a question. I wonder how you feel about like when is it that you are kind of adopted by a culture, or how do you feel as a guest in a culture?
Uh-oh, my bad, losing a little connection.
Yeah, you're good.
You're, all
Yeah,
right, that was a weird little, we good?
yeah, you good.
All right. So about adoption and culture, yeah, I mean, it's hard, man, because yeah, I mean, I still feel like I'm a visitor sometimes, or sometimes you know, I have to be careful of boundaries and stuff, or yeah, man. So I just think you know, with dance, it gives us room to maybe just look at people from the same level and then just think about it like we're just dancers. You know what I mean? Like that would
Mhm.
be like that could be an option to where like instead of thinking of your race, of where you're from or whatever, you can our first thing we'll look at each other is like, all right, you're a dancer, you know. And I think that's what broke a lot of like racial barriers, and you know, like being able to travel. And then, you know, but of course that was still a topic of like, oh, like if you're European, or if you're from Australia, or if you're from Russia, you know, like man, you always got to come to LA and feel it down here because of the culture and all that. And that's like a mandatory thing that we kind of give to the Krump world. Like if you really want to experience Krump, you got to come to where it started, you know. and then
Yeah.
that's because of the big culture, not just the dance culture, but the culture of like how it's lived out here and how people live out here, like the creators and stuff. So I think it's still a topic, and I think that also needs to be like monitored too, because yeah, I mean, some people who maybe want to come to this dance just to like make money off of it, or make it a business, and they're not even like primarily one of the races that like went through a lot, you know what I mean, and to build it up to where it could be easily taken from a business aspect like that. Yeah, so I think for me in my life and in general, I think there always just needs to be a balance. There's always a time to like be really crucial about like, hey, with race and all that, like, for me, I just think a lot of people that want to experience Krump needs to come to the source of it.
Yeah.
And then people, yeah, just need to be open that how big it is in general is because it went to like places like France, to Russia, to all that. So we still got to give them their credit of being fans at first, being, buying our workshops and all that, our plane tickets, and then, and then in a sense, when we become business partners, that's when, yeah, it goes back to like, who deserves to get paid more type of thing, like,
Yeah. 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 It's weird because in a sense, we're in the business of exporting culture. It's
yeah,
like
it's crazy.
we're like we're exporters, like coming from LA too, there's just so much that has started here, or at least on the West Coast, and then it's gotten to the point where it's become a worldwide trend. So, and then basically it becomes a question of business because people want the real thing.
Right, right.
Yes. So it's tough, man, because we have to figure out how we can pass it on, but also uh, you know, with that, pass on as much culture as possible through stories,
Mm-hmm.
um, through connections and networks. So like we can tie it back to the people that were the responsible for its origins and stuff like that as much as we can at least.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's tough, bro. It's really tough. I feel like sometimes, cause like my teacher, he never claims to be OG, right? And that's taboo. So
Okay.
yeah, so Tabo, he never claims to be OG, but he's OG where he comes from, where he's
Mm.
he's from Okinawa. So
Okay.
yeah, and so in Okinawa, they had connection with like it's military bases, right? So uh, military people would be coming from the U.S. and they'd be there and they would be popping. So they ended up getting the Breaking DVD, or not the
Mm.
DVD, the VHS at that time, right? And so they were watching that and then getting inspiration from that.
Mm.
So, and I think worldwide, man, everywhere I go, like that one movie is what inspired a lot of people to start moving. So like that. So, uh, in a lot of ways, like the entertainment industry also exports our culture.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I was just talking to my homie from India yesterday, Rashan, and he was talking about how the Step Up movies and stuff like
Mm.
were the beginning of the wave of popping in India. It's
Mm.
like,
That's
holy
crazy.
snaps. Like 2007, like
Yeah.
2007, that's when they were starting to get their first exposure to it. I think there was probably OGs, but there was
Mm.
probably a big gap in the generation where it kind of fizzled out. Um, but man, that's crazy. And then how do you take like innovation? Like so I was just right before this interview, I went and I watched the Rise just trailer and the
Mm.
Rise final battle,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And this is something that I watched like probably in 2005 or 2006, right? So
Mm.
right when it came out, I saw it and that changed how I viewed dance.
Mm.
Because I don't know, there wasn't dance never seemed like something like really even paid attention to until that point.
Right.
So uh, there was something about that, even though it wasn't my culture at all. Like it just nothing about it was uh, similar to what I grew up
Mm,
doing. So I was a skater at the time. So
okay.
then, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, damn, man, like I look at that and then I played like one of your clips recently and I was like, holy shit, bro. Like this is some serious evolution happening, you
Yeah.
know? You can still see it for sure, 100%. You could be like, oh, okay, there's a gallop right there, you know? Oh, okay, there's the wop or like those
Mm.
basic moves that are now packaged in a like a like you guys created a foundation. So what was that like? How did you guys go about creating foundations?
Well, I'm speaking from like secondhand source, so
Yeah.
I was watching Todd Eyes a lot. I got under him when he was really getting into like teaching, like workshops here and there and breaking down Krump, and like he can, like being under him like helped me teach like one basic. I could teach one basic for like 3 hours, and that's how much he broke down the dance. And I think that's just it, man. It's just it's it's the reflection of how serious and his passion and the love that he has for the dance is it's just a reflection of that, so when I would come over his house and he would just watch footage all day, like old footage, new footage, and then like there'll be 1 second or like maybe 5 second section, and he'll keep replaying it, and then he'll like ask questions like why was this an important moment, and then he'll like look, and then he'll break down, and then like from
Wow.
there we would like laugh. And I think we did that recently, like 2 months ago. We were just watching footage, and he like paused it. He was like, "Yep, I just found out something about a like Krump for about like your arms or something." So he was like showing us and stuff, and I was like, "Damn!" So yeah, man, I think, and I talked to like Popping Pete about that too. So when I took a private class from him, he said the same thing. Like he would watch footage over and over, pause it from this time to this time. This technique did good, from this time to this time, So he would like take notes. So I think from watching that from the creators, that's where it can translate to me to where I can reach out to other people that maybe he can't reach out to, and vice versa. So yeah, I think it's just a reflection of how much you love to dance. I think we can self teach ourselves if we are dedicated like that, because Tada is, no one taught him Krump, but he was letting Krump teach him. And the same with
Mm.
like Miho and all that. So he would just watch his footage over and over. All right, this little like second, what was that? And then he would make that little second into maybe a new technique or a new minute. So yeah, I've been privileged to maybe I've seen him teach Krump differently, maybe over like 20 times, and it's every time I see him, he just has a new philosophy of like this is what Krump is. So yeah, and I
Yeah.
believe everyone can do that. Everyone can do that. Maybe not to the level of like create a dance, but at least with your own style. Like really pay attention to yourself, get down to it. And it's hard because nowadays knowledge is being put out there. So we're looking for knowledge from more of an outside source than an inside source, because yeah, ultimately we're asking people, how do I be more like me? But that's so hard when, like you're listening to an outside source, and maybe, you know what I mean? Like it's such a thin line to be like, hey, how can I be more like me? Like, sir. And like,
Yeah.
and if you didn't really dig within yourself to find that question or that answer first, then you can like, so for me, I'll like really dig down, like, all right, I want to get better at this. I'll really watch my footage, da 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 da, and then if I get super stuck, that's when I like hit up Todd Eyes and say, hey, I'm really confused with this, and I tried X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's so crazy when you're talking about that because it's been real interesting the past couple years. Um, I've been mainly just watching my own footage.
Mm,
So I started making like libraries in my hard drive.
mm,
So I'll have like vocabulary and different like concepts, and I'll
mm,
have that all laid out, whether it's tut, wave, they're all segmented into different files.
mm,
And then on top of that, it's like just on a fundamental level, like working on grooves and control. Those things are like your circuitry. That's like with all the concepts that you have, that groove and that control is really the circuitry that you can apply to all those things, you know.
Mm.
So what I try and do, what I used to do was really bad at essentialize, like becoming essential about what was dope. Like
Mm.
I'd be like, okay, here's a 3 minute clip of my dance, and I would say, okay, now I got this whole minute uh, is actually what makes this 5 seconds dope,
Right.
right? The build up, and I'm like,
Right.
shit, man. So I'm just like real roundabout way of like coming to a period, you know? So
Yeah.
I had to figure out, okay, how can I make like little like 15, 20 second sequences where I could chop that like and be cool with just ditching the rest of the video. Like boom, that structure right there, okay, we saving that, you know?
Right.
So it was like more about becoming like learning to really pinpoint what is important and what is essential to what you think is dope. And for me, it's like me dancing in my backyard. I don't got anybody going, woo, you know, like
Right.
nobody's hyping me up. So it's in my head. So I'm like, okay, I think that was good. So I replay it, and then I see like, okay, yeah, this was dope, but this needs to be tweaked a little bit. And the thing is, I got no feedback but myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the crazy part, man. When you start to do that for long enough, you get pretty far.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I mean, that's again like being like under Todd Eyes and stuff and hearing his stories. That's why like hype was in Krump music, you know, because
Mm.
he started to hype himself up in his music.
Oh,
um, yeah,
yeah.
two reasons. One, because yeah, I mean, you need to hype yourself up for sure, you know, and then two, it was because everyone was trying to take him down. So a lot of the battles that he did, he didn't have much hype. So he was like, man, I'm gonna have my own hype in the music I'm about to dance to. But yeah, I think that's really important, man. And I even looked up like the psychology of hey, Lavar. I looked up the psychology of like self talk and really like how Muhammad Ali, Mayweather, and you know they're really geniuses of like when they're practicing and they're saying stuff like I'm the greatest and stuff, you know, or like nobody can beat me, and that really plays such a big part in your training and like how you innovate stuff, you know, because no one's gonna believe it until you believe it first. So if you're gonna like introduce like a new movement or maybe like tweak a movement that everyone has it like in a textbook way, you know, like it's
Mm.
pretty profound. So yeah, man. I think self talk is something that's really important to surviving, especially like in this time in quarantine.
Bro, self-talk is so important, man. That internal dialogue that you have with yourself every single day, that inner voice, you know. Um, it's a tough one because I think even when I watch myself dancing in my backyard, I could see self-doubt, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how do you really get over that, you know? And when you come into the Krump world, it's it's even more in your face. Like the thing is, yeah, like in I think part of my theory is with popping, like why I'm always like tweaking stuff and really trying to like progress and kind of there's a infinite unsatisfied person at the core, right?
Mm.
There's a dissatisfaction, but that's what's motivating a lot of the practice and the drilling and all that sort of stuff. So um, to find that, and now like I think it's part of the Japanese mentality from my teacher,
Mm.
like always like in their culture it's kind of always demanding excellence, you know, and it's never quite good enough. So it's always like I gotta do it to the best of my ability. And then how do you feel like in Krump, like how have you dealt with any self-doubt when you
Oh,
step into like a cipher or a battle?
oh, I feel like that's you'll always have self-doubt, you know, and it won't go away the higher you get, you know. So I feel like that's something that I thought that was gonna happen. Like the more better you get, the more easier it will be to perform. But it's actually the opposite because you're gonna have more pressure. You're gonna have more, you know, I mean, expectations and stuff. Hey, Lavar, respect, man.
He's commenting on my blue
Right.
drink. I'm like, yo, it's hypnotic, bro. It's hypnotic.
I was like, what is he talking about? I was like, oh,
Nah, it's amino acids, yo.
I was looking at my room like, I don't have no blue drink. But anyways, what were we talking about?
We were talking about like
Oh, self-doubt.
self-doubt, yeah.
Yeah, especially I think my biggest thing right now is like people know me, and when you get popular, like it's kind of dangerous because however you get popular, like people are gonna be comfortable with that, you know. So I got kind of popular with my tricks and some of my storytellings and stuff, but then I was just always interested in the dance part, you know. So now, like when I do a round of just straight, uh, I can't a little more, but if I do a round with just straight like basics, you know, people are just gonna look at me like, but where's the tricks, you know? So that's
Mm.
like a self doubt that I have to get by is like, yo, like I know you guys are expecting like a crazy epic like round every time or a crazy epic like move, but you know, if you really support or if you're really even a fan of dance, you'll watch it through the lens of like an openness instead of like, oh, that's him and you know, he's supposed to do this and if not, then he's whack. And I think that's really whack, you know, because
Yeah.
yeah, that just stunts a lot of people's growth. And that's just for me like where my biggest self-doubt is because especially like learning from you, bro, learning from like Steezy and all that, I would love to incorporate that into into you know, into my style, and it would just look really different from what people are used to. And I'm like, damn, uh yeah. So it always starts with me though.
Yeah, man, it's interesting, bro, because like I confronted it recently with this online battle, right, that I entered, and it I've been practicing so long on my own. I haven't been entering any battles because I just wanted to build my craft and really not like reflect on like be practicing for something, you know, just like diving into the craft. And when I started to do this battle, I was like, for the first time in a long time, I was thinking about how people perceived my movement.
Mm.
So I was like, shit, man. It made me like really reflect on it. And I like recorded all these rounds to enter with, and I was like, yo, I'm actually kind of happy with every single one I recorded. Now I just got to choose one.
Mm.
But uh, yeah, man, it's the self-doubt, I think also kind of reflects in how you perceive people's expectations too,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
because you can hear people talk like your projection of like what people are thinking or saying might not be a real thing, but
Right.
that's reflected in your self-doubt.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing. Before this whole quarantine thing happened, I was in Minnesota and I did a seven to smoke, and a lot of stuff was happening in that time, like ER dying and the coronavirus happening. I just came from the Philippines, you know, like always going back home is super emotional. So when I found out, you know, or when I was doing the battle, a lot of like people's thoughts started to become my consciousness. And I remember J. Cole said something about that, like a lot of the voices in your head aren't even your voices. And it's crazy because it may not even be directly to you too. So like, you know, we have like a bunch of Facebook like group pages or even just in general, and you read something like, oh, this person is whack because of so and so, or you know, and when you read those type of things, those it becomes part of like your, yeah, it becomes part of your like in your conscience. And then you know, when you think about it a lot, it starts to become like your voice or whatever. So for me, it was
Yeah.
really interesting that I would just see people talk about like other dancers and stuff, but that would reflect a lot of how I would think people would look at me too, you know. So
Mm.
that had a lot to do with it. So when I was in the seven to smoke, and I was just paying attention to my thoughts, I was like, dang, like, is this even true, or where did this come from? And what was that comment, or was that post, was it even about me? I think it was about like another dancer, or just like dance drama in general. But then you like categorize that or generalize that as if everyone can be victimized in that like same category. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we all fall victim to that social media stuff, man, for real. You know, the the comments, like it becomes an internal voice.
Yeah.
It becomes part of our thought process. So that's one thing I feel like you can rise to the occasion, like it can motivate your movement, but if that's your only motivator, it's gonna end up leaving you empty
Right.
afterwards.
Right. 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 Right.
Because you're chasing that validation, and you may get it, but then what? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, what do we do? What do we do after that? So it's kind of like when I see I just like I stopped entering battles because I just didn't want to hear it no more, man. I was like, honestly, I'm like, is there a way to just do what I love to do, which is just dance and share like ideas and like practice hard. I like to just like be physical, like let's
Mm.
just get down, I don't really I don't feel the need to be winning, So um for me win is happiness. And at the end of the day when I would win battles, I still had the same internal dialogue.
Right.
It wasn't going away. So the only thing that kind of helped me through those periods was the ability to share. So I get appreciated, but then I'm super grateful that I have the ability to share and also get to see people like, oh shit, like all this time I really spent doing a craft that maybe society doesn't respect. Uh, Somebody appreciates it.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then it kind of makes it worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I think in one of the books I read, it's called Big Magic, and she talks about like we all love our wait, what is it? It's like we love our craft, but then we sometimes like she asked, I think her classroom or something, like, but does your craft love you back? And a lot of people's answers was no, because they had such a, you know what I mean, like all like the culture or the people around us or whatever, like all we receive is a lot of negative like feedback. So it's like this weird unhealthy relationship. Like I love my craft so much, but then like thinking about the craft, like, oh, I always have to like prove myself. I always have to, like block out the haters or block out this and that. So yeah, man, once we understand that, like, I think she said it like we kind of treat it like like that popular like girl that we tried to get at in high school. You know what I mean? Like we love them so much, but then like they ain't trying to like mess with us. You know what I mean? And that's how dance sometimes feel like we do so much for it, but then get so much little back. But then like that's just a mindset thing. And once we
Yeah.
like get out of that, like, hey man, like, I think the craft loves me back, but it's just like it's just in a different lens, you know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I think yeah, it's just hard. And one thing that book talked about too was like being a tormented artist. So it is dope to like have it is dope to and it's good to turn your pain into art. But then to only rely on that and then like kind of like welcome pain, like, you know what I mean, like in your life, and not like going through like the therapy or like healing from those type of pains, but using that, I think is like really it's a really like dangerous thing to do as artists, because it's like, man, the more pain I got, the more like art I can do. But in real life, and your perception of people and in the culture, that's dying while your art may be dope. And that's why so many artists like back in the day would commit suicide and have heavy drinking problems and all that, because Yeah, man, because they would rely so much on pain and not like deal with that stuff in their life. So, if it's like a self doubt issue or if it's just like your communication, you need to get better at, I think we need to work on that too and not like rely on it as like our source for art. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you could have your source for art to be like love, gratitude, like your why could also be like the good stuff, not just like, all right, like I'm just like welcoming pain. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's you become a multifaceted artist in that way if you can express multiple emotions. But yeah, you see people also resort to their craft like only in times of distress, you know?
yeah,
Uh, and the idea of like I remember when I was getting ready to date my first girlfriend, right? Like full commitment was like I was like I told her, I remember, hey, you know what? Despite if this works out, at the end, it's gonna be some dope ass art.
this guy crazy.
I was like already halfway out, man. I was
Yo,
already like, hey, I know
you
this is gonna end in heartbreak, but fuck it, let's do it.
you had a disclaimer already, man.
I had a disclaimer. I was like, this is my first time trying this shit, so hey, you know what? At least I got a craft to put it in at the end, you know? Oh man. And I
Wait,
did. I did.
what did she say?
Uh, well, at that time, she had boyfriends before, so she
Okay.
was just laughing about it, you know? And I was like, go ahead, laugh about it. I was like, but when it came down to it at the end, it was like, yeah, there was some dope art that came out of that. Still, still,
Yeah, yeah.
still. But there is a certain when you surrender to the unknown, especially when it comes to love and things like that, it's kind of like, damn, you're really putting your life on the line, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, fuck it, let's just go for it because you really don't know at the end of the day. So, um, but yeah, we're kind of lucky in the sense that we have a place to put emotions. Um, I don't know about you, but like when it comes to Crump, do you feel like there's a certain emotion that's associated with it? Like, uh, do you Crump best in certain emotional states?
My bad. Can you repeat that?
He said I gotta write some X's. Oh my God, gotta write some X's and thank him for the art. Yeah. But yeah, that's a good thing, man. Be grateful for the art for sure. Uh, Yeah, is there certain like emotional states that you feel like integrate better into Crump, or are there? Because sometimes when I'm crumping, I'll be like, I'll be getting off and I'll be smiling sometimes,
Yeah.
like and that's not something I really see too much in the Crump world, but it's something that always comes out when I do it.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I think any emotion is fine as long as you're like honest about it, and you're raw. Yeah, Lavar, he's getting into it, bro. If
Just
you follow
starting,
his
man.
page, you'll see him getting off, man.
Just starting, yo.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I think all right. Anyways, I'm gonna ignore him. Yeah, any emotion is good, bro. As long as it's honest and it's in the moment. You know what I mean? And sometimes your emotions, especially with Crump, your emotions could change within seconds. Because
Mm,
one move you do can make you like feel a certain way, or it could snap into either some memory or some lab. Like, ooh, like I just did something and it just reminded me of this crazy character moment. So yeah, as long as you're honest, yeah, especially with Crump, bro, your emotions will change like drastically, maybe within the seconds, because as you experience like sub movements or have different emotions like behind it or can trigger different emotions. So yeah, I think especially me growing up older, um like I'm not as angry. Like
Yeah.
when I first started Krump, I needed it as like therapy and like anger management type of thing. But now
Yeah.
growing up and like, you know, of course life is still hitting hard as fuck, but I think again because from dealing with stuff from outside life and healing from like, you know, from all the other stuff, yeah, man, I'm just not as like it. I don't need to only express anger or like even tap into it. A lot of people ask me like, "Do you need to be angry to like Krump?" And I'm like, "No." And I hate it because it was a TV show just recently like interviewed me about that. I was like, "No, ma'am."
Yeah, because I mean, it has an aggressive aesthetic to it, but like for me, I'm not thinking about like sometimes yeah, I'm thinking about some dark things, but like it's definitely man, I don't know. It comes out in different ways for me. In some ways, the movement just comes off as like when I'm doing it, it feels empowering, you know, like uplifting. So it feels like when I put that effort in that intensity in the movement, it's like such a big release, you know? It's like this, like, yeah, it's uplifting, man. For me, it's like, man, oh, like I just itched you know, I scratched an itch I couldn't get before, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm interested to think because now you've been practicing popping for a little bit.
Mm.
Do you feel like there's things missing in popping that Krump has got like more advanced?
Um. I can't say yet because I'm still like really still diving into popping, but yeah, I think I don't know because with Krump you could just snap into a character like that, you know. I
Hmm.
haven't got there yet with popping to where like you know like I don't know. I know you guys do have like characters and stuff. LeVar is so stupid. But yeah, so I think for sure like I love how in like in Krump, the thing is like you can start around without even like dancing. Like you could just already create a story just from like looking a certain way or looking up, you know, or like just using your hands to create a story. And I don't know, man. Yeah, so I can't fully answer that just yet because I'm still getting into it. But I think the with the mechanics of it, it's really interesting because with popping, like we're hitting different muscles that crumpers usually don't hit and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, damn, bro, yeah, because I'll speak on that shit.
go
Nah,
ahead.
I'm gonna say, Crump has a lot, man. I mean, you know, I'm just getting into it, but I've been watching Crump for longer than Poppin'. So for me, there's real elements like there's a certain intensity, there's a certain like surrendering to the moment. There's also like now, I'm not speaking for all poppers, you know, like there are definitely some poppers that do it, like high level poppers do it. But just for example, like hand gestures, you know, like I already feel like Crump is learned to use hand gestures in a way that popping never integrated. You know, we
Mm,
have a lot of like flat hands. We rarely close our hand. We have like waves and things like that, right?
yeah,
But as far as like the ability to like point and look and like build like uh you know scenery basically, you know.
mm,
So I think like that's something that even when you're popping, like if you're learning just like basic hitting positions, then like what about like just changing your hand position?
right, right.
That's something that poppers don't even really try and do.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing that after I did private class with Poppin' Pete, yeah, I remember texting Yaya and I was like, "Yo, for some reason, like I miss the hand gestures already in Chrome because you could do so much just with your hands." And yeah, man, I think that's one thing that I can like agree with you is yeah. And I think Slim Boogie said it too though in one of his classes, which is interesting because you guys like we say it differently, but Tadai said it too that like your hands is like your face in Krump. So everyone looks at your hands as if like they would look at your face in conversation, you know. So if I'm like doing this, like you could tell my emotions from my face. Same like how you would see from your hands, and that's what Slim Boogie said too in one of his
Mm.
classes. So it's interesting that there's that relation in it. But I think yeah, Crump does emphasize like the hands like a lot more because again like it's a lot of raw emotion based. So this like really means something different from that, especially in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is kind of a universal, like, I mean, it's universal. This is what happens when you stress or want to clench up or, anything, it's like this is a natural instinct. So,
Yeah.
as far as like when we talk about like popping and stuff, like this sort of stuff is like, I don't know, man. I feel that even a clip that I'll probably be posting today for the battle, there's like a pose that I did. It was so crump, bro. It was just like
Yeah.
I looked at my hand like this, and it was like, oh shit, it's already starting to weave, like, because I've been practicing just positioning with my hands. So, and for me, it spoke way more than ever like I could before with just popping. And I would try and speak with postures and stuff, but um, the thing also, it also has to do with the music, I think,
Yeah, for sure.
what's motivating it. So when you have popping that comes from a funk bass, it's kind of like, um, yeah. I mean, I think people were more speaking with their angles and like
Mm.
the way they would look, or it's more about the speed at which they start to move. So like if you're strutting and you have like this, like you're looking at somebody tilt your head and you're like aggressive and quick, or how hard you hit is
Yeah.
really more how you're speaking than, your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, and Crump, it was a lot of like lyrical uh stuff at first, so that's why these, and you're saying it right, HGs, that's what Miho would teach me before it was called even language. It was hand gestures. So because they were dancing to the lyrics, they were really trying to emulate the music or the words actually. So that's why these things like Annie up, get that fool, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was a lot of lyrical bass stuff first, then
Uh,
like beats and like loops started to come about. But yeah, I mean they're just trying to express words like even with this like ripping apart stuff or like pushing, like grabbing, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think when you're talking about music, that's where it would derive from is a lot of lyrical stuff, which is what that the little conversation.
oh shit. Froze up. Wait a second real quick. It's a perfect freeze frame, man. It's a perfect freeze frame. He's gotta go. Oh snap. Yeah, we'll get him back on right now. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, y'all. We're just getting started. But comparing popping and crump right now. So it's kinda interesting. Oh shit, it's about to end. Yo, I'm gonna restart this live. We got 30 seconds left, so I'm gonna get baby tight eyes on here again. So